Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 197. Today we are talking about mistakes you can avoid, and they're simple, and they will save you a lot of time, anxiety, and money. Great episode for you to pick up on some very interesting, informative, necessary tips. Let's jump on into episode 197. Hello, welcome to episode 197. Today we're talking about rookie mistakes, really, or just those things that you do not want to miss when it comes to property development. I'm Hilary Saxton, and this is Bob Andersen, the amazing. Ta-da, ta-da.
Here we go.
Before we kick in, Bob, giving away the book, Property Millionaires Exposed. This week, the book goes to Colin Farrell. And when I heard Colin Farrell's name, I said, "You were joking. It is not Colin Farrell." And he said, "No, it really is." And I didn't believe him. So the story of how I met Colin was last week. One of our mentoring students was, it was demo day. So I went down to get some footage because he lives in another state and I was going to be nearby. So here I am out there with all the demo team having yarn. And after I finished the filming of that, because it's so cool watching the smashing down of buildings, I went down to another mentoring student's project to see where they're up to because they're getting close to completion, and had a walkthrough and just took a few photos to send off to him, which I haven't done yet, so I need to do that. So that was only Friday. But I was, just doing the do as you do. And I was chatting to the painter and he was asking me a few questions, and we'd sold something up the road not far, and he was the painter on that job as well, I think. Maybe not, I'm not sure. Anyway, we just got chatting, and then after I left, I said, "Anyway, you're doing a great job. See you later." And he goes, "Yeah, see you. Cheers, Hilary." And I said, "Oh, you know my name?" Because I thought, I never told you my name. And I was quite surprised that they just let me wander in off the street and start taking photos and opening cupboards and checking stuff out. No one even questions it. And anyway, "Yeah, I know who you are." "Oh," he goes, "I listened to your podcast." And I cracked up laughing and said, "What's your name? You'll win the book." So that's how Mr. Colin Farrell, the tradie, won a copy of Property Millionaires Exposed.
Wow, good story.
Yeah, pretty funny. Anyway, Bob, so today we're talking rookie mistakes, really, or just really easily mistakes that can be avoided. And people might see them. They're really risks that are so easy to mitigate. And I love that word, mitigate. How good is it?
It's a great word.
It is. I love it. It just means eliminate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But
take care of, dispense with.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm a dictionary.
Yeah, you are. But we're going to talk through the ones, the easy ones people can mitigate in all of those listings. Just say it to yourself, mitigate, and try and use it today. And if you do, put a comment under this and say, "I used mitigate." And the first person who does wins a book. There you go. That's what we'll do. But before we kick into it, Bob, what's your tip for the week?
Well, Easter's down the road, not far,
Mm-hmm.
which means what? Easter, chocolates, bunnies,
Bunnies.
eggs, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Don't overdo it. 2 tips, actually, thinking about eggs. Don't overdo the amount of chocolate you're eating, but go for quality, not quantity.
Okay. Good.
Like
Good pointers.
Lint, maybe, or
Are you going to confess on the amount of
Your
small
fault.
chocolate eggs you have eaten in the last week?
all your fault. No, look, you bought a container of small Lind eggs, and they are pretty small.
Mm.
And then you break them out straight away and start trying to feed me. Well, you didn't try to feed me with them. I did voluntarily take some.
Yes.
So, yeah, I have to admit I have been chipping away at the little Lind little Easter eggs.
Nice.
Mm.
I have helped you as well. I can't wait until they're gone, actually. I do not want
I'll eat the rest of them tonight for you.
Oh.
Then you'll be happy.
Yeah, I will be. That'll make me very happy. Bob, so let's start with talking about the problems with property development and the reason, the problems that can be easily eliminated. And the reason we've got this podcast really is we recently had the masterclass, and I've sat through that so many times that often when I hear your voice, I switch off. And even, because in my time, I've done a fair bit of editing or something like that. And I've listened to videos, and often you have to hear ourselves talk, and when you hear each other talk, you just go, "Shut up," as a joke. That this time, because I needed to edit the masterclass, because in the past it had been done by somebody else, and we can't really outsource it because it's so content. You need somebody who understands the content to do it. And so I just thought, I'll do it because I understand it sort of after you the most. And when I went through it, when I was doing it, I thought, wow, this is so good for beginner property developers. It is so good. So anyone thinking about wanting to understand a bit how property development works, our masterclass is gold. It really walks easily through the process, and you just got great slides. It's great everything. So congrats on that. But then I thought, all these areas have mistakes because we've talked about them so often, and people come to us and they've got problems, and that's not an opportunity for everyone to think, yeah, if I've got a problem, I'll email you, because people do, and please don't, unless you're in our community. Otherwise, no, don't. So let's talk through some of the basics that happen on a regular basis. Are you keen?
Yeah, let's go.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I'll start right at the beginning because there's two things that you need to do before you head out in the car and try and find a site. One of them, get the structure right. Get a structure set up, in other words. And what we mean by a structure is it's the entity that you're going to use to do the development. It will buy the land. It'll sign a contract with a builder. It'll sign the finance agreement. The money will come into that entity before the profits get dispersed. And typically with property development, it's not your own name. As soon as you use your own name in a property development, well, first of all, it's a problem asset-wise, asset risk, having things in your own name. Plus, you'll end up having to pay personal income tax on the profit, which is not pretty.
And if you buy it the wrong name and you have to transfer it,
well, stamp duty, potential capital gains, depends. So, yeah, it's just messy.
I never thought of that one. Capital gains.
Depends how long you've been sitting on it. But really, if it's going out of one entity into another, there is stamp duty, but potentially capital gains. So, yeah, look, very important. Get a good accountant, a good property accountant, to help you with your structure. And not everybody's structure is the same as everybody else's. So it's not just something you pull down off the shelf. It will depend on your circumstances, what you're going to do with it. But go to a good, what we call a property accountant.
And then there are different property accountants or different accountants, aren't there?
Yeah. Look, no offense to the ones that do the fairly cheap income tax returns at Westfield. There's a place for everybody, but they're not the people you go to here. So you need an accountant. Look, the perfect accountant to me, somebody who's been around for a while. They understand tax structures, they understand business. They also understand property investment, and property development. And a real bonus, because I've had a couple of really good accountants over the years who also are involved in property developments. Not that that's an essential, of course, but it just shows you how much they love property and how much they know about it. But very important, get the right structure first up. The thing is that if you don't have it, you could miss out on a deal.
Meaning if you're thinking you're out looking and you haven't actually set up your structure and you need to put your name down on something.
Suddenly find a cracker and you want to go to contract, what name do you put on it? Because you haven't set up your structure.
What do you do in that case, Bob?
Well,
will they avoid it?
Well, look, if you're in Victoria, you might get by with a nominee contract, but in other states you can't. So if you put your name on a contract, that's what it is. The only way you can get it off would be if both parties, the seller and yourself, agree to swap it for another one. But then, you have to get the other party's permission to rescind that contract and enter into a new one. You don't want to be taking those sorts of risks and mucking around like that. Just get the structure first.
Hey, another good word there, Bob. Rescind the contract.
Rescind.
There you go. Two good words, mitigate and rescind so far.
Yeah, two people can rescind a contract, both agree and enter into it.
But you don't want to do that. And what if that you have a contract and everyone said yes and you want to change it, but then a later contract, someone said, I would have offered you more, and then you just never know, you might lose it.
Yeah, so get very simple, get structure sorted first. As soon as you find the deal, bango, straight on purchaser, that's your entity.
And an accountant who knows what they're doing. And you don't have to change everything to that accountant. And that's something else people don't realise. You can just use the accountant for your structure to just set up your structure, and we do that all the time. Our structure guy doesn't do our books. We will go everywhere else to do all sorts of different things. So you use the right people for the right job. And let's talk about the fact that you do not want to just try and get it done on the cheap.
Never works.
It'll cost you a fortune.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can. Yep.
You and I both know the importance of paying the right people for the right things, hey?
It's back to value again, and not price. Yeah. The other thing you need to do before you head out looking for a deal as well is to understand what can you afford to do as a property developer. How much money can you pull together to do a project? And once again, that would be a conversation with a good, I'll say a commercial finance broker as opposed to a retail finance broker. Retail finance broker being somebody who typically would help you get a home loan for your home or maybe an investment property. Commercial finance brokers are that, plus they understand commercial finance, understand property development finance, and that's who you need to talk to. They can have a look at your personal financial circumstances, and they can come up with, basically a dollar amount that you could afford to spend on a project. So you've got X dollars. They can work out, well, how much can you borrow against that with what you've got? Maybe you've got some property that you can use as well. They'll have a look at the whole thing, and you'll end up finding out, well, okay, I can do a project worth this much. It could be a 2-lot subdivision, could be a 3-lot, could be a duplex, could be 3 or 4 townhouses, whatever it is, it is. And so really important that you know that before you head off.
And you know what happens when people don't do that? They're stuck. They actually don't know what they're doing. They're like a chick with their head cut off. They just run around in circles and get absolutely nowhere, don't they?
Yeah. And create a lot of drama for other people, real estate agents themselves, finance brokers as well. And, at its worst, I've seen people sign unconditional contracts where they couldn't come good with the finance, and then they forfeited their deposit and technically can even get chased, like sued for specific performance. So it's not something you want to muck around with.
What are they sued for? Specific performance?
Yeah. Well, if you crash a contract, you can lose your deposit, but it can go deeper than that as well.
What is specific performance?
Oh,
I just want everyone to try and say that too, by the way. You say it specific
performance. Yeah, it's got to do with other losses beyond just the deposit, which is potential. So you just don't want to go there. So 2 things: understand how much you can afford, and look, it might be that you can't get the project you want because you haven't got enough money. Well, at least know early if you need an investor, and then look for an investor. So get structured. Understand how much money you've got, what you can afford to do, and then we can go looking for it.
Okay,
look for a site.
That's the first 2 ticked off my list, Bob. Structure and finance. The next area I want to look at where the rookie mistakes happen, finding a site. What's the number 1, 2, and maybe 3 problems here that you see people doing, and they're just rookie mistakes? Just don't do them.
Well, one I think is that some people spread themselves too far. So they have this attitude, okay, I want to buy a development site. If I take on the whole city, it gives me a better chance because it's a much bigger area, big wide area. But that won't help at all because, and as you know, what we recommend is to choose an area, what we call a patch, and go deep on that. So it could be a council area, it could be 1 or 2 suburbs, whatever it is, but become a real expert in that area, because unless you're an expert, you can't make a really good commercial decision. And sometimes we have to make fast decisions, good decisions, but fast. And that means you need a lot of local knowledge, a lot of depth of knowledge in a particular area. What do townhouse sites sell for? How much per townhouse? What do townhouses sell for? Who are the best agents in this area? A whole range of things that you need to know.
And you can't know that when you're trying to do that with everything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one mistake I see people make. The others sort of lead on from that, the following steps, because they're all interrelated.
Okay. So our next step then is, I've got them listed down beside me, so I keep them in the right order. But due diligence. What are the biggest due diligence rookie mistakes you see happening, Bob?
Oh, look, just not understanding how to conduct it and who to get who can help you with it. So I've seen people say, I found a 2,000 square metre lot. How many townhouses can I fit on it? Well, is it zoned for townhouses? Let's go back to the beginning. What's the zoning? Oh, it might be a zoning where you're only allowed 1 house on the lot, no townhouses, or maybe it's a 2-lot subdivision, but not townhouses. So just understand the basics, understand zoning, understand lot sizes. You might have a zoning that suits townhouses, but it's too small a lot. It might be zoned for townhouses, it's 400 metres. And that local council might say, well, you have to have at least 600 with the townhouse zoning to do townhouses as well. That's basic stuff.
So you're saying they buy it and then they haven't actually worked out
Well, hopefully they haven't bought it and start to do their due diligence later.
But is that the biggest one? They just don't, the biggest due diligence thing, zoning?
Yeah, they don't understand the steps of doing proper due diligence, getting how you're going to connect your sewer and your stormwater. Really important stuff.
Actually, Bob, just recently I've had numerous, and I even said it to you today, talked about it today, people contact me with land subdivision sites. And the thing with the land subdivision, because we brought it up, it's really a good time to talk about it now, is that you actually have to spend money on them to know whether they will work or not, versus if you do like either just a splitter or you do a duplex or townhouses, you don't really have to spend money on them, do you? You
No.
can work out your numbers and have a DD everything done. But when it comes to land subdivisions,
Large ones,
yeah.
not too large, but I say
Over
8 or 10 upwards.
Yeah, 8 or 10 sites upward. They do require a bit of financial investment to know whether they're going to work. And the thing with land subdivisions is the margins are bigger, generally, aren't they? And they're easier. Yeah, well, generally can be easier, generally. So if we're generally talking. But how does somebody do enough DD on a land subby where, when it's just land only, but before they commit to spending money on it? So this is so all the people that email me, because I've had like 3 emails today.
Well, something like, let's say we were building something. It could be a duplex, 3 townhouses, 4 townhouses, whatever, or a little subdivision, 2 lots, 3 lots, that sort of thing. It's pretty easy, once you've got a bit of experience, to understand all the costs that are involved in that, and they're pretty straightforward. If you said to me, I'm going to build a 2-story duplex, medium standard of finish, 180 square metres, I pretty much know exactly what that thing will cost. But with land subdivisions, it can vary quite a lot. The cost to develop a block of land can vary. It's all about civil engineering. But, once you get into slightly bigger ones, you might have roadworks. So you've got roadworks, you've got earthworks, you've got sewer, water, stormwater, and power. And it varies quite a lot from subdivision to subdivision. I've seen subdivisions in the same street, like 10, 15 lot, 20 lot subdivisions, where one subdivision was nearly twice the price to develop from another one.
Can they happen on the same subdivision?
I have worked on large subdivisions where different stages can cost 50, 60, 70% more, even though they're 50 or 100 metres apart. It just varies quite a lot. There's a lot of variables. So with a land subdivision, you need a longer due diligence period to work it out. You need, first of all, like a planner subdivision. So you need the engineer surveyor to work up the plan showing all the lots where the road is and everything else. Then you need a civil engineer to basically work it over and come up with a broad brush costing on it all. Until you do that, you don't know. And
they are going to charge you, because people don't have to work for free. And that's why should people? I mean, you listening here doesn't go to work for nothing, and that's their jobs. And I think sometimes people expect that, don't they, that it should be a free thing because they don't know if it's going to make them money. But will they share half that profit with them if it did? Yeah, well, that's the thing about it. Like with a land subdivision, you have to do a bit of work because the cost can vary so much. You build two townhouses, 2 duplexes side by side, same standard finish, same side, they're all going to cost the same. Subdivisions don't work like that. And so that's why you have to spend a bit of time and a bit of money, not too much, but to understand, well, what's this really going to cost? So back to just normal sort of cheesecake, bread and butter style property development. So the biggest rookie mistake when it comes to due diligence are just not understanding all the things you need to look at to make sure there are no issues. I've seen people buy land that floods and they can't build on it. I've seen people buy land that they can't get a connection, a stormwater connection or a sewer connection. And what do you do then? That's just a few. I've seen people buy sites that had trees on that you can't knock down. Like you name it, I've seen it. Yeah. So you just got to work through the list and just check every single one off.
There's always people that can help you, but like if you don't know what you don't know, if you don't know what to ask, like you don't know.
No.
So you have to know.
You have to know even what to ask. That's the same thing.
Yeah, what to ask and who to ask and understand, what they're saying. So you can't just rely on other people to do everything for you if you don't know what to do in the first place.
Yeah, which brings me to my next one, because this is one that this happens with. We're going to talk about feasibility, and we've got the free feasibility at lunchtime session tomorrow. It probably is recorded, so if you would like that, maybe you could send me an email, write me a nice comment on YouTube. Hey, Hilary, can I get that to feasibility? And then, hey, maybe we will send that out. But when it comes to feasibilities, you have to do your own. That's what I'm thinking. Before we go on to your number one rookie mistake, we often hear people say, the buyer's agent or the real estate agent, they've done a feasibility on it. You always have to do your own feasibility, don't we?
Sure.
What if somebody made a mistake?
And they do.
Yeah. You saw it last week? Feasibilities, Bob. You've got to do your own feasos. And
you have to take responsibility for it.
That was my segue from doing things yourself, knowing what to ask, and you don't know if somebody has made a mistake in a feaso. And we had that happen even to us last week. Somebody else had something, and lucky we check over stuff.
Yeah. So the numbers, that property development's all about numbers. You have to make sure that you're getting sufficient profit. Otherwise, you're not going to get the finance anyway. So very important. Don't want to buy a lemon.
I think that's quite a point that you make there. And a bit of a realization that has to stack up for more than one reason. And one is to buy it because you want to make money and you're excited and you go in there with all the emotion and heart in the world. But it actually has to stack up for the financier.
Yeah.
Because the valuer has got to run through with his fine tooth comb, and then he's got to say to the financier, "Yep, you're good to go," and then they go and find the money. But if the feasibility, if it's incorrect because you've buffed up some numbers or made it look good, do you often see that, Bob? Overestimate or underestimate?
Oh, yeah. I think that the two biggest issues or where people go wrong is, firstly, they don't understand the cost. Most people can get the sale prices right. Most places you can look around, you can find enough recent sales to get a handle on that. But the costs, the rookies, they don't know the costs. They don't know all the costs. And they don't even necessarily know the amount of the costs. So if you leave costs out, look, you're more likely, very much more likely to leave costs out than to put too many in. I mean, I've never seen anybody put in too many costs. I've never seen anybody make up costs that don't exist. Well, boy, I've seen people leave stuff out. And that makes the project look better than it is. And it could eventually mean that you bought something you think is quite profitable that isn't, because you've left a lot of it out. So that's a big mistake. The other mistake I see is people get emotional. They really want to buy this thing. They're not analytical. They're not unemotional about the numbers. And they may have searched for a while. They're frustrated. They're a bit impatient. I've had a look, finally found something. I love this. Looks like it's going to work.
It's a winner.
It doesn't really work. Doesn't quite work, but, it's not that far off, maybe, hopefully, And they start saying things like, you know what, I'm going to really design these well, and I'm really going to push the agents, and I'm going to sell it for more. Now, I know the ones around here sell for 1.1 million, but I reckon I can get 1.2. I'm going to do a really good job. And then still not there. Oh, bill cost. You know what? I'm going to get prices off 10 builders, and I'm going to beat the last two down, and I'm going to get a really low bill price. And the next thing, they're dropping the bill price. They're upping the sale price. Before you know,
dropping
this, it looks like a deal.
Yeah.
And just not being real. And you see it. Okay,
so what about purchase? What problems do you ever see with purchase? Many or none?
Not a lot, no. But a lot of the time we're just buying like the old house on some land that could be developed. So it's really just a purchase, like an investment property purchase. So you can't go too wrong there. It's not all.
Actually, I've got one for purchase.
Yeah.
The transferring of the money on the day. These days, things have changed. Banking restrictions are tighter. And you and I have had several problems settling on things. We had one at the bank nearby had flooded, so we had to go to another town to a bank. And then some banks don't like to transfer large amounts of money, and you've got to pretty much sign your life away and say you're not giving it to somebody online. It's crazy. And then also sometimes transferring from some banks, especially like Macquarie and stuff, they can take a couple of days sometimes to move the money. So sometimes when it comes to the purchase, just finding out ahead of time how long that transfer will take might be an idea.
Well, you can lose for a day. That can happen if you give yourself, you push yourself into too tight a contract. Maybe you have a finance clause. You want 21 days and they're pushing you for 14, and for some reason you just can't get it all done in 14 and they don't give you an extension. What are you going to do? So, just accepting too tight a contract just to get your hands on this thing. And so that can happen. Things don't always settle when they're supposed to settle.
Oh, do they ever? I don't think I've ever had a settlement be bang on and perfect. They're always a little bit stressful.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah, we've had a few stressful ones where we're, running around at the last minute trying to grab cash out of a whole heap of different accounts because certain things didn't happen.
Transfer money. Yeah, that's why I thought of it. And we probably should have been a bit better prepared for one of them recently. I thought we were all good to go, but Macquarie just took longer than they usually do, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, you got to give yourself a bit of room, and because you're getting pushed by the other side to try and settle.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just one that I happen to remember. What about approvals? What are the biggest rookie mistakes you see with approvals?
Well, some people don't really have an understanding of town planning. Like, you don't have to be a town planner by any means. You hire a town planner, but just on the approval front, thinking they can get away with a lot more than you can.
I'd do that. I'd push out the boundaries.
Pushing the boundaries is, look, you can do a degree sometimes, but some councils can be quite tight on things as well. So, thinking you're going to get a bit more, a slightly larger building on the side, or thinking you can get a relaxation on parking, or, so just unrealistic expectations. Also not understanding the actual process and the things that have to happen and the timing as well. Because getting things like a development permit, you're at the whim of the council. Even if you've got a really good application, you ticked all the boxes, just how long does it take?
For those watching on YouTube, when Bob said the word council, he probably went bright red. His blood pressure creeps up.
Not my best friends. Although, as you know, we're doing a project at the moment where they're really helpful.
Yeah, we've got good council.
Really good council.
We've had a couple of great councils.
It's great when you got a good council.
Oh, isn't it?
Just not understanding that process, or not even getting the right town planner, particularly if you've got something a little bit complex.
I remember a past mentoring student had his town planner didn't get on with the council, and he had trouble getting something through, and then he found out afterward that was why.
Yep.
He was so frustrated about that. So the town planner, the council didn't like him. And you can't always know something like that, but that's where a good recommendation does pay off. Somebody who's worked with a town planner and they say, they were great and everything went smoothly. It's a good thing to know. Yeah.
Good referral.
Yes, great referral. Okay, Bob, what about finance?
Well, that's a big.
We said finance at the start, so we
talked a little bit about it at the start. There's often two stages of finance. When you buy the site, and then you need some extra money when it comes time to build. So after you got your approval, so that can be with the same financier. It could be a different one who pays out the first one. So just a knowledge of, an understanding of finance and how commercial finance works. That's what we talked about earlier. And getting yourself a really good broker. I've seen people that try and save a brokerage fee and do it themselves and mess it up.
Oh, don't even start me on those people. How many times do we talk about stop trying to,
save 5 cents and lose $1, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Just don't do things on the cheap, because you've got to remember, property development's so lucrative. It's like you deciding to do a cheap course, but you've got half the knowledge in. Oh my goodness, you'll make so much money if you do this right. Yep. But you've got to also hire the right people and do the right, get the right professionals behind you.
Yeah, so finance, once again, getting a retail broker to try and do commercial finance, bad. Don't do that. Giving yourself enough time.
Okay.
There's plenty in finance. I mean, we've done
days on it.
We've done a whole weekend on finance. There's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it, but the big rookie mistakes I get, the number one would be make sure you've got yourself a great broker, but also understand it, and it sort of ties in so much to structure, and they all tie together. But
Yeah, like even trying to get retail finance at the beginning, where retail banks don't like lending on property development, and then, you know, having an entity buying it that's called something or other projects or something developments. That's flying the flag.
Yeah, careful. Yeah. Okay, but what about construction? The rookie mistake on construction.
Well, don't always go for the cheapest builder. The cheapest builder could be still good, but don't just make it purely on price. So what you really should be doing, you know, when you're working towards the construction time, so when you're in that approval process, when you're getting your development permit and your building permit, that's when you should be out there talking to builders, because you're not that far off needing one. And so you should be out there talking to them, having a look at their jobs, visiting them on site, you know, getting referrals, that sort of thing, getting to know some builders so that you can get them to quote on your job as soon as you got your approvals. And that's really important. But judge them as well. Make sure you know, do good due diligence on the builders yourself.
On the person, not the car they drive or the shoes they wear.
Definitely not the shoes the builder wears.
You know what I mean, though? Don't judge them on what their appearance is. And it's like they're absolute shambling.
So even communication, like I often say to people in our mentoring program, just say they're getting prices off 3 builders. And they're saying, okay, I'm getting prices off 3 builders at the moment. They're nearly in. And I say, what's the communication be like? Like I'm not even interested in the price at the moment. What's the communication been like between you and the builder during this process? And some will say, oh, it's really hard to return calls. You know, he often returns calls 1 or 2 days later. That's not good. But if they say, oh, look, the builder's really good, returns calls, you know, leave a message, returns quickly, explains things, been really helpful. Well, that's a really good start. Now they might not be the cheapest, but like there is a difference between, you know, a quality builder. You know, the old saying, yeah, do you want it fast? What is it? Do you want it fast, cheap, or neat?
Yeah.
You know, words to that effect. Which 2 do you want? You can't have all 3. If you want it fast, it's probably going to be knocked up a bit quick. You know, the quality might drop off. You know, those sorts of things. But is it possible to get a builder who does all 3? It is. Yeah, I think we know a couple of builders that have worked for us that have been reasonably well priced, good quality work, and reasonably well. When we say fast, not fast, but within time, not going over the contract date and all that sort of thing. So yeah, just choosing the right builder.
And that's a big statement. The rookie mistake is choosing the wrong builder, but there's a lot that goes into choosing the right builder. Little things like how do they communicate and what does their work like, and have you talked to people who've worked with them, and what did they, you know, what was their experience like? Because sometimes, as we know, people can be nice when you first meet them, and then they don't actually turn out to be that nice. That's a thing. We've all seen it. Okay, Bob. So what about marketing? What's the rookie mistake with marketing?
Oh, I think with marketing, you want to. Most of the time you use a local agent. Let's say, you know, you don't normally use an agent 6 or 7 suburbs away, because they're not going to get that inquiry. But if you use an agent, most of the time it'll be local, but somebody who sells new projects, somebody who really understands how to sell new projects. There's all sorts of agents out there. A lot of them just sell secondhand stock, you know, resales is what we call them. So, but really somebody who understands how to sell new project. It's a bit different. The buyers are a bit different. They can be quite discerning as well with new properties, as particularly expensive ones.
Discerning, another big word there, Bob.
Yeah, well, not too big.
No,
but somebody's got a good track record of selling new projects. That's what you want. It might not be the person that sold you the site. So I never absolutely guarantee that the agent who sold me the site will get the sales at the end. I'll say you're definitely in the mix, but no guarantees, because they're not always the best to sell at the other end. They might be good, and that's fine. I've often done it, but not always. And so it's a big thing choosing the right agent. But you've got time. You know, you would have gone out and had a look at other properties, developments other developers have done, like open houses. You would have seen quite a few agents. When you were buying, you would have spoken to quite a few agents. So you would get to know quite a few agents in that area. So you've got plenty of time by the time you're selling your stock, because you might not even sell it until you're finished. And that could be like, say, 2 years after you first met the agent where you bought the site in the first place. 18 months, 2 years, pretty normal. So you've got plenty of time to do it. It's not something you have to rush. And don't just grab somebody because they're willing to discount their commission.
No, you want somebody who knows what they're doing to get the people through that can make the sale. Because there's such an art to being a good salesperson, and good real estate agents are great. I've seen some fantastic ones. I really have. And I think since coming on board here, I've really come to notice the property development real estate agents, like the agents we use for selling new stock, can be with, in the past I've done over 20 renos, and so they were a different thing to sell. And it was so much easier. I didn't put as much effort in. To be fair, I had a lot of friends that were real estate agents, but I would always stick with the same one, and I think it pays off if you've got a good one to know it. But this ball game, completely different. I have noticed that, because we all notice stock around where we're selling that sits on the market, and you're like, why is that still sitting there? And you just kind of, you've got to wonder.
Yeah.
Anyway, last one, Bob. Settlement. What are the mistakes with settlement?
You don't have a lot of mistakes at settlement because, you've got your sales contract. So, that's part of the marketing, I guess you could say. The agent getting the contract, getting that sorted out. And so you're just down to your conveyancer or your lawyer here to settle. So generally
you can't mess that up.
Well, they shouldn't mess it up. No, it's a pretty straightforward thing to do. My only thing is, I might say something just post-settlement, after you're settled, is we'd like to have a little party to celebrate the project and invite people that were instrumental in it. And that's all about building relationships with the right sort of people. The finance broker was very helpful. Invite the finance broker. The agents were good, great sales. Well, invite the agents, builder, maybe the builder and the builder's foreman or whatever, invite them. Just have a little party. It could be on site. It could be, pig on the spit. Could be whatever it is. It could even be not on site. It could be off site. It could be, Friday afternoon at the local.
So you're saying to do that, it's a rookie mistake not to do that.
I think it's a good thing to do because it's relationship building, and property development is a lot about relationships, and it's also a celebration of finishing, finishing the project.
While we're on that, Bob, the celebration of finishing, I think we've come to an end of the podcast.
Okay. It's probably been a long one. Might be time to finish.
It might be time. But I think that's great. We've covered off some of the basic mistakes that happen on a regular basis. They do happen on a regular basis. So if we've managed to help you, hopefully, to not fall into any of the basics, well, that's great. If you'd like to have a chat to me about property development, you're welcome to reach out. There's always a link below in the podcast, or we can go straight to our website and book a call. You can have a chat about what we offer, or maybe we can help you, or how your journey might look. Well, happy Easter. This is going to come out Easter Thursday, so we hope you have a fabulous Easter, and we will catch up with you really soon. Bye for now.
Bye now.